Brandon, we are on day 35 of the government shutdown.
World record!
And it is the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, breaking the record of the 34-day shutdown that was also during Trump's first term. And I wanted to do a short recap. We did an episode at the beginning of the shutdown where we discussed the reasons why this is being the case. Basically, the budget resolution that is necessary to pass in order to continue funding the government is being held up by the Democrats are putting their foot down. They won't vote on a budget resolution until they get three things. They have three stipulations at the moment. One is that the ACA, Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, subsidies that allow a lot of people to buy or afford their coverage are expiring in December of this year. And that has a huge increase to the premiums of a ton of people's healthcare across the country. I think it's like tens of millions. You can go back to the episode where we talked about it the first time.
That is a bad idea.
Also, second, reversing the Medicaid cuts that were passed in the big, beautiful bill earlier this year.
We love the BBB.
That we also discussed on an earlier episode. And then three, a point that goes unmentioned a little more often is Trump throughout the year Trump's administration has chosen to make unilateral decisions about cuts to agency spending, breaking from previously passed budgets by Congress. So Congress has laid out some sort of budget plan that would fund some sort of agency or organization within the government. And Trump, throughout this year, has made the decision to cut funding to certain areas, fire employees through organizations like Doge or through himself.
Remember Doge? What an era.
Wow.
What an
Way back when we were talking about that a lot.
It actually does feel like much longer ago than it is.
Yeah, but it's not
the pace
actually.
Of everything moving. It was the beginning of the year.
But the Democrats, I think, fairly have a problem with the way these cuts have been handled, in that it is the responsibility of Congress to pass and approve budgets, and then the executive branch chooses to make its own decisions about how cuts can be made to those budgets. Then you're overriding the decision-making power of Congress.
What was the point of the whole legislative process and voting if it just gets overruled by the executive? I think that's a fair point.
And it also means that if there's any commitment in the negotiation of this budget resolution now, if there's no agreement about no longer doing this in the future, that means any decision you come to it doesn't even really matter in the future.
I mean, we talk about this. The similar thing is we come back to that TikTok example, but it's like a lot of people went through a lot of effort to get through that through the House and the Senate and the judiciary and everyone vote on it. And then it didn't matter. He wrote an executive order and it changed.
And nobody wants to fight that one. Nobody cares about the
Nobody cares about that one to fight it. But I think if you worked in that part of the government, it's like, well, what the fuck is the point?
What are we doing?
What are we doing?
So those are the three stipulations that Democrats have chosen to put their foot down in a situation where they don't have a lot of like political support or credibility right now.
Sure.
And for them, this is a move to show some spine, hopefully gain back some support, and they have very little to lose. And then on the other side of things, the Republicans have throughout the month seemingly refused to negotiate. I've seen basically no news. I don't know if this is different for you. I've seen basically nothing about progress on the negotiation front. I have seen that this week, some quotes about people becoming optimistic, but no concrete progress as to a resolution to end the shutdown.
Yeah, I will say, like, we talked about this when it was way earlier in the shutdown, that the thing that usually stops this train is people stop showing up for work on critical roles like air traffic control.
They all play D&D?
They all play. Yeah, they all go play D&D. They put on fursuits like you, Aiden. And
sorry, I'm just so stupid. I just make such dumb fucking jokes.
I feel bad. But it's happening. It is happening now. That prediction that you made has come. I mean, incredible look at the past. It's come to pass. People are calling in sick. They are they're taking their PTO. They're not showing up. I talked to someone whose mother is an air traffic controller, and he was giving me exact details on what's going on. They are changing the flights so that flights can no longer be within 5 miles of each other. They'll be within 20 because they're stressed about having understaffed people. So they're reducing the chance of risk by making flights farther apart. They're adapting. They're offering people. They can't give them money, but they're offering them paid credits for pre-worked hours. And you can take time off in the future. So if you work 8 hours now, you can get an 8-hour show off in the future. And a lot of people, this woman who's older told me that the older generation are all taking all the credits and working extra hours. and the millennials are calling it sick. That's what she said. Maybe it's a little generation bias, but that's what we're seeing. And so, we've already seen some shutdowns at LAX and some major airports, and I assume that's going to continue to spread. So there is that pressure, but I will agree with you that I don't remember that well the last shutdown, but I remember it having more of at least the pretense of negotiations during. This one feels like nobody's bothered.
Yeah, there was a loose idea. This is all vibes, right?
Yeah, this is vibes
because it's hard to remember how exactly I felt at the time and what the news cycle day to day was at the time. But this is the first one where I have a feeling of, oh, we're not even trying to figure this out. That's what it feels like.
That is what it feels like. It feels like both sides concretely think the other one will cave and they have nothing to gain by negotiating, really. Maybe that's more the Republican stance than the Democrat stance, but I listened to Trump's 60 Minutes interview last night. They asked him this question, and he essentially said, they're going to cave. That is his plan. It's two-part plan. He said that, or we're going to get rid of the filibuster and then just force this thing through.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about that quickly. I had a misunderstanding of the filibuster before this. I thought the filibuster was exclusively when you delay the progress of a bill by continuously debating or talking about it. But they've been voting on the budget resolution over and over and over, the stopgap bill. I think they voted maybe 12 times as of today, and they just keep not passing it, right? They don't have the 60 vote majority that they need to progress the budget bill, which still is a filibuster if you just continuously vote no on the same bill to impede its progress. And it's funny. I'm not surprised by this at all, right? But it's whatever party in power has the short-term view of let's get rid of the filibuster to create progress here. Because this was something the Democrats were seriously discussing, I think maybe 3 years ago, there was a push for the Democrats to end the filibuster because they would politically benefit from it at the time. And now it's twisted in the other direction where all of the Republicans that were obviously against it at that time are now coming, a lot of them are coming out in support of it. Sorry, this is not I don't think this is a unilateral thing where I think people in both parties understand the long-term consequence of eliminating the filibuster. Yeah. So there's not this entire support for this direction. But now it's being brought up at whichever party happens to be in power and is being impeded brings up the idea of getting rid of the filibuster.
But I will say not all Republicans in that Senate Majority Leader John Thune of the Republicans flatly said no, we're not going to do this. Yeah. No, this plan, to the question asked that Trump was proposing. And Trump was asked about John Thune saying that in the interview and basically said, he did this. Well, I think that's wrong. He seemed annoyed. So I don't know what kind of pressure he can put on John Thune to get that changed, or that there's two different views, because he also, I'm not alarmist here, but Trump talks about, the reason you don't want to do that, as you said, is that in the future, the shoe will be on the other foot. Someone else will have power. Yeah. They'll be able to use it against you. But Trump talks like that is never, he doesn't have any.
If you're fully on the train right now, you don't think it's going to happen.
Right, but John Thune thinks that's real. He is operating under his longer-term political view that eventually they'll have someone else in the Senate. But Trump does not seem to operate that way. He doesn't have any fear of that, which I thought was interesting, if not slightly alarming.
The other thing we talked about is the systems that start to break